We all know the feeling of hitting the wall. You spend weeks preparing for an exam only to see your practice scores flatline, or you put in hours at the office but can't seem to break past your current role. When the numbers stop moving, a quiet voice usually creeps in. It tells us we've finally tapped out our natural talent and that this is as good as we are ever going to get. We treat that resistance as a hard boundary, a limit imposed on us by external pressure, fierce competition, and our own self-doubt. The moment we accept that boundary as real, we stop looking for ways around it. The stall turns permanent, simply because we agreed to stop walking. Most people recognize Bruce Lee as an icon of 1970s martial arts cinema, but beneath the on-screen persona, Lee built his entire physical practice on a foundation of deep, rigorous philosophy. He looked at the concept of human boundaries and said, if you always put limits on everything you do, there are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. Lee reframed this friction as a temporary resting phase, a period of consolidation required before the next climb. Progress requires redefining these moments of quiet as preparation for growth, rather than a signal of failure. We picture limits as ceilings. You gain skill, then progress slams into an impassable wall. But Lee argued the geometry is different. The wall flattens into a step, giving space to consolidate gains. Critically, there is open air right above it. The psychological trap is that arriving at a plateau feels exactly like hitting a ceiling. Because forward momentum stops, our instinct is to assume the journey is over and settle in. The plateau tests psychological endurance. Momentum returns only for those who maintain their effort through the silence of the flatline. You can see this refusal to be boxed in throughout Lee's early life. Growing up in Hong Kong, he was initially exposed to the arts, working as a child actor, playing street-smart characters under the influence of his father, an opera singer. As a teenager, he found himself caught up in local street gangs. Out of pure necessity, he began studying kung fu to defend himself in real-world fights. Yet, to improve his footwork and balance for fighting, he didn't just spar more, he studied rhythm. By 1958, he had become the Hong Kong Cha-Cha champion. Integrating these opposing disciplines prevented mental rigidity. Lee expanded his combat capability by drawing on the external mechanics of the dance floor. To pull him away from gang life, his parents sent him to the United States when he turned 18. He eventually settled in Seattle to finish his schooling. When he enrolled at the University of Washington, he bypassed physical education entirely. Instead, he studied philosophy and drama. He took the conceptual frameworks he was reading in class and tested them on the mat, eventually opening his own martial arts schools in Seattle and later in Oakland. Pure physical repetition only takes you so far. To push past a serious point of stagnation, you need an intellectual framework that changes how you analyze the problem itself. At the time, the martial arts world was highly segmented. Practitioners trained strictly within their specific traditional styles, which meant combat techniques had stopped evolving. They were stuck on a collective plateau. Lee ignored those boundaries. He took his deep foundation in traditional kung fu and layered in the heavy strikes and evasive mechanics of Western boxing. Then, to manage distance and increase his lunging speed, he studied the footwork of competitive fencing. The result was Jeet Kune Do, a fluid, highly adaptable fighting system that stripped away rigid traditions to combine boxing, fencing, and kung fu, guided by his own philosophical theories. Escaping a rut rarely comes from repeating the exact same drills for another 100 hours. It happens when you pull distinct outside systems together to build a completely new approach. The methodology Lee used to build Jeet Kune Do is the exact same toolset you can use when you feel stranded in your career or stalled out while learning a new skill. When the metrics stop moving and you feel like you've maxed out your capacity, step away from the immediate problem. Look into a totally separate discipline for a fresh mechanic you can borrow and apply to your own work. A plateau only dictates your current altitude. The only absolute boundary you face is the choice to stop climbing.